So, do you or don't you ever look at TikTok? Well, I can't say I did, except for this week when I saw Claudia Conway, who is the daughter of Kellyanne and George Conway, do a TikTok very disparaging with her mother. So I'm Nadia Bilchik, or as Facebook likes to call me, Nadia Milkshake, and I am joined by two remarkable women. I'm joined by life coach, lifestyle strategist, author, magazine editor Chloe Taylor Brown, and board certified clinical psychologist Rebecca Johnson Osei. So, ladies, I don't know what your TikTok interest is, but I'm going to ask everybody who's watching if they haven't had a chance to Google Claudia Conway TikTok, to Google it and to see this TikTok where she's rather disparaging of her mother. Claudia Conway is 15 years old. So I'm going to bring in my illustrious panel. And I'll start with you, Chloe. When you first saw it, what was your response?
Well, I noticed my emotions. I didn't feel good about it. I did not feel good about a 15-year-old daughter videotaping her mother and posting it. I didn't feel good about that because her mother had asked her not to do it. And so she did. She had an opportunity to not do it. And so I didn't feel good about it. I thought it was disrespectful. That's my overall impression.
So, Dr. Rebecca Osei.
Yes, ma'am. Same. I'm not big on TikTok either, but I see the headlines. You see the headlines, you have to look and see what it is. And let's say it wouldn't have been a quiet night in my house.
Now, you have a 1.5-year-old. Chloe you don't even have teenagers anymore, Chloe.
No, my youngest is 21, and he's actually the one who has introduced me to TikTok. And when I brought that up to him, he went right ahead and pulled it up. However, this morning, I read it on my Google News feed, and so I was familiar with it. But after speaking with you this morning, I did see the video, and the video was, it made me feel worse than what I was reading, to tell you the truth, because it's not about your politics or anything. This is the mother. I wouldn't want one of my children or my niece or my nephew or my friend to do that to me, especially in that moment.
And that's why I wanted to speak to both you and to a psychologist. I wanted to say to Dr. Osei, who, by the way, is not only a psychologist and a board certified psychologist, she's a concierge board certified psychologist. I'll explain more about that later. But what kind of child? I mean, is it unusual for a child to rebel so much against her parents that she would expose them and perhaps shame them publicly? And again, I want to really preface this with, we're not discussing the politics, because some people have called Claudia Conway the greatest whistleblower of our time. I wanted to have this conversation around social media and a child having the power, Rebecca, to put something like that publicly out there.
Yeah, and this, mind you, is part of the social media generation as well, right? It's something that none of us in this conversation had the opportunity to do. Teenage rebellion is somewhat normal. I say somewhat because there's a degree to which teenagers get in trouble and they're testing boundaries and finding out what they can get away with. But there are certain behaviors that a lot of people would say, that would never have happened. That would never fly with my parents. I wouldn't have gotten away with that. I would say this probably is falling on the more extreme, and I'm not using that term clinically, but if we're just looking at a continuum of types of rebellion, this is out there. She knows she's 15, so she's very much a teenager, but she's also 15. She's very aware, I'm sure, to some degree of the repercussions of her actions. She knows how many followers she has. She knows this is having an effect. This isn't standing at the top of the stairs and screaming at your mother and saying, "I hate you, you're ruining my life." This is telling the universe that maybe you feel that way. Like you said, it gives her a lot of power because of her following. It gives her a unique way to rebel that is probably very difficult for parents to navigate, since social media is so much now a part of how our kids communicate with one another. It's not as easy as we used to just say, no TV for you for a week because you were bad. It's harder to cut them off from things, but yes, this is definitely it's a unique and powerful, to use your word, way to, I guess, get a message across to your parents.
Wow.
Wow.
Chloe, in terms of punishment, I mean, I'm just curious, like, and then I'm interested to hear from Rebecca. Okay. For those of you who are watching, we're talking about Claudia Conway. Her mother was senior advisor to President Trump. She puts on TikTok that her mother has had 3 COVID tests. She then has a fight with her mother on TikTok and shows her mother looking somewhat disheveled, and then her mother saying something about, you can't lie about effing COVID. If I'm getting it correct, take a look at it, please. No parent would want to be seen in that light. No parent would want to be videoed in that light. How do you discipline your child? How do you come back? What do you say to your child? I mean, I just was fairly obsessed with this because obviously as a parent, I thought, what if my child, I hope they wouldn't, let's say, do that to me, so to speak. How do you even let them know how much shame, how much embarrassment, or are you proud that they're a whistleblower? I don't know. What's the...
Well, for me, I'm just sitting here listening to you and just thinking about myself, putting myself in that situation. It has, after the fact, it has been done. Whatever it was exposed, whether it was a truth or it was not a good look. And so what comes to my mind, years ago, I was watching TV. I'm not sure if you were in Atlanta at that time when Maynard Jackson was mayor, and his son was somewhat troubled. He was, I don't know if he was a young adult, but he was a little bit troubled. Could have been a teenager. He was a little bit rebellious, and he got into trouble. Maybe he was arrested. And so I always said, if one of my children did that, it would break my heart, the public figure. And you have to go on. You have to say, this is my child. I love my child. I'm disappointed. And this will be handled in a private manner, in a family kind of a way. What else can you say? It has to be dealt with at home and not publicly. But I do think that if Kellyanne is going to go back into the public arena, she will have to address or say something to say that it was a private manner, because she has also said that she wanted to go home to spend more time with her children. And I think that would be...
I want to spend more time with the family. Rebecca, if the two of them came into counseling, I mean, it's very hypothetical. Where would you begin?
Yes, and so I will preface with, I can't armchair diagnose, as we say, anybody, but in a situation like this, and I think Chloe has a really good approach, which is the coming at it from love, even when you're hurt. We can scream, we can yell. That doesn't actually tend to get us very far in any of our interactions. Assuming, and in most parent-child situations, there is love there on both ends. And especially with a teenager, there is room to say, this hurt me. Whether or not that was your intention, that's what this did. Your actions had consequences, and one of those consequences is that it sincerely hurt me. So if I was seeing them, I would want to know how they actually felt, but both of them. Why was this done in the first place? What was the triggering event? Is she calling out for something from her parents? And then how does her mom feel? I agree. I think it's mortifying in a lot of ways if you think about being in that position yourself. And it's easy to be angry as a result of that and angry for them. But I think I'd be turning to Kellyanne and saying to her, can you please explain to your daughter why this matters? Why is this important? Outside of what it might do to you politically or career-wise, but as a mom, what did this communicate? And I do think when we approach things from that point of love and caring and understanding, that's where we have the most hope of finding common ground and healing.
I think that's so constructive. I just pulled up and I had lost it for a moment, but basically this is Claudia Conway. My mom has COVID, Claudia Conway wrote on one post. I'm furious. Wear your mask. Don't listen to our idiot F president piece of whatever. Protect yourself and those around you. She posted on another. Anyway, I mean, the mother's response was, my daughter is a beautiful, brilliant 15-year-old, but and this is social media, said the mother. Okay, so this is an isolated incident, and clearly I mean, as an onlooker, you don't look at this and go, well, very well adjusted, happy family, great communication. So there are a couple of other issues I wanted to bring up, which was just the power that social media has, that a 15-year-old, has access. And are you seeing, Rebecca, more depressed teenagers? What impact is this having on our psyches?
And this is an area that the research is really new on as well, but there is more and more going into it, and that's exactly what we're looking at. And it does seem to be having an effect on things like self-esteem. And some of that is, we rationally know that everybody puts their best foot forward on social media. And the teenagers do know that. But it's just like how, as women, we know that the woman in the magazine is probably photoshopped and edited, but we still compare ourselves, and teens still compare themselves to their peers and others. And I think even when they know that people put their best foot forward, it's still hard for them not to compare. And again, that's something that your older generations, and by older, I mean late 20s and up, right? Not that much older, didn't have to combat growing up. You only, competed with the peers you actually saw in person who weren't edited and things like that. And now that you have social media and you have filters and, TikTok has all kinds of fun things that you can do. I think it can blur reality, and that can be really hard, and it can be dangerous. And there are even trends, let's put it that way, that can go viral with things like this. And I don't just mean the fads of people, drinking too much ranch dressing, but even things around health, like how thin you should be, things you should do. We see young girls taking photos that are probably more risque than most parents would go for. That again is just not something that used to happen, but now there's a lot of pressure. How many likes can you get? How many followers can you get? And there are some surefire ways to keep those numbers up, even if those aren't necessarily from a mental health standpoint, the healthiest ways to get those numbers up. And it's definitely something that I think parents need to be really aware of.
Well, Chloe, as a model, and people say Chloe was a former model. No, Chloe was a model, has been a model, is a model, continues to model. You've lived in a world where there's so much focus on your aesthetic. Do you have a sense that social media, The Social Dilemma, which is on Netflix at the moment, really just exposes the power it has over us?
Well, I think you have to take it for what it is. You can use it as adults. We use it for our business or our brand. And also it could be used to be destructive. We see a lot of people use social media in a destructive way. But I think that kids who actually are native to social media, the internet, it's like them breathing. And they express everything on social media, one platform or another. They express their feelings. But then again, I've noticed that they don't know how to do that as well in person. And so I feel, and I'm not trying to diagnose or do coaching or anything, that there was something, I think that Kelly had made the right choice to say, I'm going to now go home and pay attention to my family, because maybe there was a little bit of resentment there. It seems that way to me. And I think this is an opportunity for her to say, okay, we've been going through some things as a family. Now we can see what's important to everyone in the family, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to get to our best self as a whole family. And each of us make up a part of this family. So how can we help to be our best self? So I think that it's an opportunity for her now to go ahead and be and show up as why she resigned from her position.
There's so many different ways of looking at this. Judge Apatow, and we're coming back to Claudia Conway. I tried to get us into social media, but it's just so fascinating. We can't help ourselves. Judge Apatow, who's a well-known Hollywood director, and he says, she's the whistleblower of our time. Some people are saying, wow, isn't this child brave? Because she's standing up for herself and she's exposing things to the country. That's why I just find the whole thing completely fascinating. But from a parent point of view, because I look at it both as a journalist, as someone who's living in a divisive country where politics is so volatile and controversial, I'm going, if your family or your family, they're the people you love the most, right? And you love them and they love you. And your child exposes you, as you say, Chloe, what level of anger and resentment is there that you would, because I mean, there's just so many layers to this. And I'd love to know what people are thinking and respond to us, either whether you're watching this on LinkedIn, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching on Facebook. What would you do if it was your child? And I think both of you have come up with excellent, very mature ways of dealing with it. But also,
you know what, Nadia? See, I can sit here in this position, but it's not my child. Who knows what I would do? I don't know. It's just a hard thing.
You think her father's proud of her because, there's a difference of opinion between Kellyanne Conway and George Conway. Maybe he's saying, yes, you're saving America. I mean, who knows, right, Rebecca? We don't know the dynamics, but it's pretty shocking watching. We're talking about, for those of you who've just joined us, and I'll let you describe it, Chloe.
Well, we're talking about Kellyanne Conway and her husband and their daughter, Claudia, who has taken this 15 seconds of TikTok video of her mother in a compromising position. The compromising position is being ill from COVID, and her daughter thinks that she misled her by not telling her that she was positive. And I think that from Kellyanne's perspective, she said, I told you I had 3 tests. 2 were positive, 1 was negative. And I believe that Kellyanne was saying that you heard the negative and not the positive, and you behaved and reacted on the negative. And so it's very confusing. I think I helped to
very much. And the fact that then she videos her mother looking very disheveled, looking very unkempt. I mean, ladies, I would not be happy if anybody saw me like that. And believe me, I look like that often. So it's both the looking like that, and then the swearing, and then the not knowing you were being videoed. I mean, I don't think there's any one of us that if there was a secret camera would love what was seen, right? I mean, there are times where you're very happy no one's videoing you.
And then you think, well, is the video on in here somewhere when you know it's not?
And to have, I mean, the thing that we're discussing is, the fact that it's your own child. Okay, so Mike, Mike, Rebecca, he says this is very insightful. And Faisal says, good afternoon. We do have somebody asking us again, and we have answered this question, but what would you do if it was your child? But I think the purpose of this discussion was there's a problem if we live in a place where that level of exposure, but I also think the lesson here is anything we post on social media can, in fact, harm us. I mean, just to think before you post.
Adults and children, yes.
Yeah. And she posted herself saying that the attention she's getting, and she said this multiple times, is harming her mental health. So there's some level of understanding there, but I think, this is Claudia, and I think that's always true, but this goes back to maybe just teenagers and figuring out how we as the adults in society prepare them. Because even as she's saying, stop paying attention to me, this is affecting my mental health, I think she did this before her mother resigned, she then is back doing it again. So there is some understanding of the repercussions, even just personally, but then this knee-jerk reaction to do it again, and to maybe even dig in deeper. You could argue, with the filming of her mother without her mother knowing, that there's something missing there. There's a piece of either a support that she's not getting, or a coping mechanism that isn't there, that's causing her to keep reaching out and keep doing this, that she then turns around and says is harmful to herself to even do. And again, you talked about kids in general. Most kids don't have her following, but I do think we see smaller versions of this happening, where there's kind of this repetitive behavior that can even be problematic. And it's up to us to figure out, and I don't have the answer, how we really prepare them and make it so they can see those.
In this social dilemma, the Netflix documentary, they say children should not have social media until they are 16. I mean, that's not going to happen. And I don't think we're going to provide all the answers today, but just as parents, Rebecca, I mean, what do you want to say to parents, to people who are navigating this maybe with their own kids?
I think knowledge is the most important thing. I'm going to go back to what Chloe said about, approaching things from a place of understanding and love. The same way you would have conversations with other mistakes they might make. I'm going to love you unconditionally. Here's the advice I can give you. Here's the guidance I can give you. And if you need advice or if you make a mistake, you come to me, we'll figure it out. We're a family. We'll get to the bottom of it. And hopefully that will give your child the freedom to come to you before things maybe get to this point. Hopefully, no guarantee. But I do think a lot of it is the communication, because like you said, I don't know that we're going to succeed in keeping them away. I mean, I'd like to say you can't be on until you're 21. Let's get that brain fully formed.
Yes, you have a 1.5-year-old.
Right. But I think realistically, just like rated R movies, you can ban them from your house. They're going to go see it at, Steve's house down the street. They're probably going to find their way onto social media. But what you can do is try and provide sort of, guide rails for them, and just yourself be aware of what they're doing.
Well, if Kellyanne Conway or Claudia Conway is watching, we would love you to join us. We would love you to come on, talk to Chloe, Rebecca, and Nadia, and tell us how you're doing today. What's the fallout been? What are the ramifications? I'd be quite keen to actually talk to them and say, have you managed to have a conversation? Is Claudia going to continue to expose her mother in this way? How's her mother going to deal with it? Are they going to go and see a therapist?
That was my next thing. I've gone to therapy with my family, and it was the best thing. Years ago, we all went to therapy after the death of one of our children. And then recently, my 21-year-old and all of us were going through a great transition. And so we were back in therapy again. And I can say unequivocally, Dr. Rebecca, that it was the best thing for us at the time, because we needed to work things out as a family. Okay, we can apologize, but okay, what is causing this? What is the root of it? And what can we do to really like each other again? Because we love each other for sure, but I want to like my children. I want to like my friends. I want to like my family members. And so that's what I would say. Let's go get to a place where we like each other again.
Oh, I think that's a good way to that's positive, right? Because there was an element here of a kind of public shaming. What the intention behind the public shaming was, and maybe Claudia Conway is, as Jazz Patel says, the greatest whistleblower of our time. But I think as mommies, we're watching this, and certainly I am going, there's so much more to this. Rebecca, first of all, Rebecca is a concierge board certified clinical psychologist. So won't you, as we end today, tell us what differentiates you as a concierge board certified clinical psychologist and how we can reach you?
Absolutely. I'll try to keep it simple. And if anybody knows anything about concierge medicine, that will probably answer most of their questions. But essentially, I own a group practice, and we limit the number of clients we see. So we only see a handful at most in a day, which allows us to be more flexible. We don't ask you to come in 25 minutes early. I say, you pay me enough, I can wait for you. You don't need to wait for me. We're in Atlanta. There's too much traffic. You come in, you get your latte. I'm waiting for you. We have our session. If you need a couple extra minutes, we always book in extra time so we can run over. It's not one of these, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock type things. We always have extra room. And our clients have direct access to us. So they have a number that forwards to my cell, and they can reach me if they need to reach me. So a lot of the concierge model is just, it's literally just us having less clients so we can devote more time and energy to the people that we do see. And that
there are parents who are watching, who are concerned about their child's social media use, or the power their child has over them, or an anger like we are seeing. You'd be an excellent person to speak to. Chloe Taylor Brown has been a dear friend of mine. She is a masterful speaker, coach, lifestyle strategist, editor of Flourish magazine. Chloe, tell us more about your services and how people can reach you.
You can reach me at chloe@chloetaylorbrown.com. And I am a lifestyle strategist. I'm a life coach, lifestyle strategist, and executive coach. But really, all of that is the same to me. Wherever I go, they're giving me the labels. But what I do, I call myself an educer of excellence. I have this ability to cast this line into your essence. And with my amazing personal excellence profile, to get to the root of what it is that's eating at you basically. And it really, what it's doing is showing you yourself and how you can elevate yourself to based on what you want to create in your life now. Because what I wanted to create in my life before March is different from now, slightly, maybe a lot. So this is a kind of a coaching that I would do for young women and girls, for executives, also for women. Most of my clients are women. And the website is lifeupwithchloe.com.
And please link in with Chloe Taylor Brown, with Dr. Rebecca Osei. Rebecca, did you tell us what your website is?
It is conciergepsychology.com.
conciergepsychology.com. I hope this has been a helpful conversation. I'm Nadia Bilchik, and I really try and introduce you to interesting people, try and share strategies about how we can all navigate our lives better. And both of you, I think, have helped us unpack something that is certainly very mystifying. And Chloe and I talk about this a lot, Rebecca. We're always looking at ways, how can we elevate people's lives by taking what we know we should be doing and applying it. And that's all of our goals in the work we do. My website is nadiaspeaks.com. And I'm hoping that once a month I can check in with Rebecca, with Chloe, and we can look at the news and see how we as parents, as mothers, as women, as business women, as coaches, as speakers can help navigate our lives better. So thank you all for joining us. And Chloe and Rebecca, thank you for being so spontaneous. And let's wish Kellyanne Conway and George Conway luck. And they sure have a feisty daughter.